I think it appeals to the insecure overachiever elite. Nobody building anything really gives a shit about Davos. Nobody is thinking what's going on. Nobody even knows when it happens. So who cares about it? People who like status and went to fancy schools and wants to feel like they're in the club, and that's how they've made it, is going to this place, which underneath is a membership organization where people pay based on the number of people that get to go. So is it really that important? Substantively, no.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Market Empire. Our guest on today's episode of the All In podcast is Chamat, who will be talking about their most recent market predictions as well as the baffling predictions that will come out of Davos in 2023. Business leaders and economists congregated for this peculiar yearly event, but Davos 2023 seems to come with a large question mark because media outlets seem to be reporting more on this once secret summit. One major subject was the past year's campaign by central banks for high inflation and interest rates around the world. Due to this, some of the largest firms in the world have been warned of a coming recession and have been advised to hold off on investment in anticipation of an uncertain year. Doesn't have high regard for the gathering or its participants and thinks Davos is just a show put on by a group trying to bring together the world's most powerful business and political figures to increase their ability to influence global affairs. Let's get started with the most recent conversation with Chamat as he discusses his thoughts on the economic climate for 2023 and how this yearly event is fueling additional market trepidation. If you like the stuff we produce on this channel, please remember to click the like and subscribe buttons.
Overachieving surplus elites in the West really value the signal that it represents to other overachieving surplus elites in the West. So that's what Davos is. That's what the Allen and Company conference has become. A lot of these things started off much purer than what they are today, but these are all membership-driven, revenue-generating efforts. In 30 or 40 years, the All-In Summit will probably become that too. It's just the nature of things. So I think the bigger thing is that we are learning that the world tends to have these policy perspectives that swing in a pendulum. And the problem with the pendulum is that it is at extremes. And Sachs is right. We went from an extreme where we were very closed off and we were essentially subsistence farmers. All of us were. And then the pendulum has essentially peaked probably in the mid-teens of this decade or of this century, where we realized too much globalization actually hollows out local economies. So we need to find the equilibrium point. And that inherently has more inflation, that inherently has higher prices, and that inherently has slower progress, but more consistent progress that benefits more people. And this is what is so ideologically disruptive to, again, surplus elites, because they need the $600 iPhone. The idea that they can't upgrade every year drives them into such a tizzy that they need to export all the jobs. Whereas a $1,000 iPhone or a $1,500 iPhone may just mean that your upgrade cycle is 2 years. And just ask yourself, how many times have you upgraded as soon as the phone came out to realize, man, this phone is actually worse than the previous version? And I probably could have just waited. And there's a lot of work that actually goes into building these things to actually make them better. So all you're doing is you're giving up optionality. You're allowing your brothers and sisters to struggle to basically feed the profit motives of one company. That in hindsight doesn't need to happen. So there's an equilibrium. And I think that these next few decades will be about finding it. We have decided, it's categorical, that level of globalization that we have had, this unitary, singular, monocultural way of thinking about things, is over. And David's right. It's because that system has created too many threats to the hegemony that brought us there.
JCal, do you?
That's a good thing, I think, in general.
Yeah.
It'll be more prosperity for more people, but it'll be slower, and it will create points of friction that are represented in inflation and higher prices.
JCal, as Chamat points out, like if you're upgrading every 2 years instead of 1 year, your economy doesn't grow as fast. You have less spending.
Yeah.
If the price of things go up, you have inflation. The net cost of deglobalization is higher prices and lower economic growth. That's just fundamental kind of macroeconomics.
No, that's not true. That's not true, because the deglobalization in an individual economy will actually create GDP, because you'll have to rebuild the things that you used to import.
That's right, yeah. And over a period of time, theoretically, you could catch up and accelerate. But J-Cal, like when you weigh this conversation about Davos and globalization and U.S. security against the one we just had, which is why I wanted to talk about this, we're running into a debt crisis. We have limited spending capacity. We have a significant amount of investment needed if we are going to cut global trade ties that we've depended on historically and start to build redundancy. Can we afford this as a country? Can the West afford this, given the economic slowdowns and inflation right now?
Davos is a huge grift. They recruited me to be part of their world leaders 15 years ago after I had sold my second company. And I met Claus, the guy who runs it, at some New York Four Seasons event. And then I got the bill. And to be a world leader was $40,000. And I was like, what, a global future leader? I don't know what that means, but I'm not giving you $40,000.
Sorry, you had to pay?
You had to pay to be a global future leader. And you didn't have to pay for a $6,000 TED ticket at the time. This was joke. 40 large. And I just thought, this is not for me. And
what a joke. I think it's fine for them to get together. They should do it. I just think that if you're not there, I would not weigh these things so heavily because it speaks more to your own insecurity than it does to their actual influence on things.
So I would differentiate between the people who are merely attending, who are paying the $40,000, who are probably a bunch of hangers-on.
It's now $250, by the way.
$250,000.
$250,000. Yeah, anyone willing to pay that is like, totally an insecure, surplus elite.
By the way, I just got back from Davos.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, congratulations. Looks good on you, though.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Looks good on you.
Did you spend your own money or your LP's money?
No, I didn't go to Davos.
Oh, man.
There's the hangers-on who are spending $250,000 to feel important, but then there's the people who are invited who probably don't spend any money, who are basically speaking, right? And you got to say that the group of people who are speaking at Davos individually and collectively are quite influential. They are the leaders of countries and Fortune 500 companies.
Sure, but you can agree that they literally don't say anything that's noteworthy because they're not allowed to.
They're not saying anything that's that different of what they would say the previous week or the following week. So, but it's
a forum. It's a platform for
it's a forum for all these people to get together.
And again, as Sachs pointed out, global debt to GDP is something like 300 to 350%, depending on how you count. And we're running into a debt ceiling here in the U.S. I guess the question is, how do we afford to build the infrastructure, redundancy, and make the investments at home to replace global trade? Can we afford to do it? And how's this going to play out as we run into this, debt ceiling vote?
I don't think that's the right question. I think it's the inverse of that question. How can we afford not to? With the amount of discontent and the amount of economic strain that people feel, if you want to really quell populism, you're going to have to create economic vibrancy at home.
Many business leaders and executives have been planning for the prospect of a U.S. recession this year, but the issue is still up for debate. Since the last time a recession was considered, many commentators have claimed that if you're not anxious, you're not listening. Expectations and estimates are lower than usual due to the pessimism that last year's swift interest rate hikes induced. This notion is echoed by expectations at Davos, but according to Chamat, the $250,000 participation fee and exclusive status don't translate into reality. It'll be interesting to see how this year plays out since these once secret meetings are now discussed openly with their intricate global plan. How do you feel about Chamat and the All In podcast's assessment of the market prognosis for 2023? Do you believe these economic forecasts to be accurate? Please leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. We look forward to seeing you in the future video.